The truck's engine growled to a stop, and the silence of the suburban street hit me like a slap. I stepped out, my boots crunching on the gravel, and stared at the house me new start. Or so I thought. Then I saw him, my neighbor, leaning against his porch railing, his smile cutting through the dusk like a promise I didn't yet understand. I'm Ethan Carter, 30, freshly divorced and raw from a life I tried to outrun in Chicago. The small town of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, was supposed to be my reset button, a place to rebuild after my marriage to Sarah unraveled when I finally admitted who I was. Moving here, I carried 2 boxes, one with clothes, the other with regrets. The house was modest, a 2-story with peeling paint and a creaky porch. But it was mine. I'd bought it sight unseen, desperate for a fresh start. The air smelled of pine and possibility, but something about the stillness made my skin prickle. He introduced himself as Noah Bennett, 35, with a handshake firm enough to make me notice the calluses on his palms. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said, his voice low and warm, like he'd been waiting for me. His dark eyes held mine a beat too long, and I felt a jolt, something I hadn't felt in years. Noah was tall, broad-shouldered, with a flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows and a quiet confidence that made my chest tighten. He offered to help me unload, and I let him, grateful for the company. We carried boxes in silence, the kind that felt heavy with things unsaid. Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and Noah seemed to know it best. He told me about the diner that served the best pie, the bar where locals played darts, and the lake where kids swam in summer. His words painted a picture of a life I could slip into. But his smile, God, that smile felt like it was meant just for me. I caught myself staring at the way his jawline caught the light, then looked away, ashamed of the heat creeping up my neck. I wasn't ready for this. Not yet. That night, I unpacked alone, the house creaking like it was whispering secrets. I found a bottle of whiskey in one of the boxes, a gift from a friend who knew I'd need it. I poured a glass and sat on the porch, the stars brighter than I'd ever seen in the city. Noah's house was dark except for a single window glowing upstairs. I wondered who he was when the neighborhood wasn't watching. Was he like me, hiding parts of himself? Or was he just a friendly guy with no baggage? No shadows. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and a knock at the door. Noah stood there, holding a thermos and a paper bag. "Thought you might need breakfast," he said, handing me a warm bagel. His fingers brushed mine, and I froze, my heart doing something I didn't want to name. We sat on my porch steps, sipping coffee, talking about nothing, weather, baseball, the best way to mow a lawn. But every laugh, every glance, felt like it was building towards something. I told myself I was imagining it. I had to be. Days turned into weeks, and Noah became a constant. He'd stop by with tools to fix my leaky faucet or invite me to the bar with his friends. They were a tight-knit group, all in their 30s and 40s, the kind who'd grown up here and never left. There was Mia, a nurse with a sharp laugh, Tom, a mechanic who loved classic rock, and Lila, a teacher who eyed me like she knew something I didn't. They welcomed me, but I felt like an outsider, always watching for the moment they'd see through me. Noah, though, made me feel seen in a way that scared me. He'd lean close when we talked, his knee brushing mine under the table. Once, at the bar, his hand lingered on my shoulder as he laughed at my terrible dart throw. I wanted to lean into it, to let myself feel what I hadn't in years. But I didn't trust it. I'd spent too long burying that part of me. And Willow Creek wasn't Chicago. Small towns had rules, and I wasn't sure I could break them. One evening, Noah invited me to his place for dinner. His house was warm, cluttered with books and vinyl records, a stark contrast to my bare walls. He cooked steak, the kind that sizzled and filled the air with comfort. We talked about our past carefully, like we were stepping around landmines. He mentioned growing up here, his parents' farm, and a brother who'd moved away. I told him about Chicago, my job as a graphic designer, and my divorce. But I stopped short of the truth. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. After dinner, we sat on his couch with beers, the room lit by a single lamp. The air felt thick, like something was about to break. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and said, "Ethan, you ever feel like you're running from something you can't name?" My breath caught. I wanted to tell him everything about the nights I'd spent questioning myself, about the weight of hiding who I was. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded, and he smiled, like he understood. That night, as I walked home, my heart was a mess of hope and fear. Noah was different. He saw me, maybe more than I wanted him to. But I wasn't ready to cross that line not yet. I didn't know then that he would cross it for me, and that when he did, it would change everything. The air in Willow Creek thickened as summer bled into fall, the leaves turning crimson and gold. I'd been here 2 months, and Noah was no longer just my neighbor, was my routine. Every morning, I'd find him on his porch with coffee, waving me over like we'd been friends for years. But there was something else now, a current running beneath our conversations, electric and dangerous. I felt it in the way his eyes lingered, in the way my pulse quickened when he said my name. I told myself to keep my distance, but I didn't listen. One Saturday, Noah dragged me to the town's harvest festival, a chaotic sprawl of hayrides, cider stands, and kids chasing balloons. The whole place buzzed with small-town pride, but I felt like I was playing a part. Noah, though, was in his element, shaking hands and cracking jokes with everyone. He introduced me as Ethan, the new guy, and I smiled through the awkwardness, wondering if they could see the truth I was hiding. At one point, he handed me a candied apple, his fingers brushing mine again, and I swear the world slowed down. "You're gonna love this," he said, grinning, and I wanted to believe he meant more than the apple. That night, we ended up at the bar with Mia, Tom, and Lila. The place was packed, the air thick with beer and laughter. Noah challenged me to darts again, and I was terrible, as usual. He stood behind me, guiding my arm, his breath warm against my neck. "Relax, Ethan," he whispered, and I nearly dropped the dart. My face burned, and I caught Lila watching us, her eyes narrowing like she was piecing something together. I pulled away, muttering about needing another drink. But Noah's laugh followed me, low and knowing. Back at my place, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment. His voice, his touch. I'd spent years locking away that part of myself, convincing myself it was safer to stay hidden. But Noah was unraveling me, and I wasn't sure I could stop it. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "Meet me at the lake tonight. 8 p.m. Noah." My stomach flipped. I told myself it was just a friendly thing. But deep down, I knew better. The lake was a mirror under the stars, reflecting the tension I carried as I walked to meet him. Noah was already there, sitting on a blanket with a cooler of beers and a lantern casting soft light. He looked up, his smile softer than usual, almost shy. "Thought we could use some quiet," he said, patting the blanket. I sat beside him, closer than I meant to, and we talked about music, dreams, the way the stars looked brighter here. Then he went quiet, staring at the water, and I felt the air shift. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." My heart stopped. I knew that tone, the one you use when you're about to bare your soul. He turned to me, his eyes raw, and said, "I'm not who everyone here thinks I am." He paused, like he was weighing the cost of his next words. I'm gay. Always have been. But this town, it's not exactly the place for that. His words hit me like a punch. Not because they surprised me, but because they mirrored my own truth. The one I'd buried for years. I wanted to tell him I understood, that I was like him, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I just nodded, my hand shaking. He looked at me, waiting, and when I didn't speak, something flickered in his eyes, disappointment. Maybe. Or hurt. Then he leaned in, his lips brushing mine, soft and tentative, like he was testing the waters. My body screamed to kiss him back, to let go, but fear clawed at me. I pulled away, my breath ragged, and mumbled something about needing to go. I stumbled home, my mind a storm. Noah had crossed a line, not because he kissed me, but because he'd forced me to face myself. I wasn't ready, not for him, not for this town, not for the truth I'd spent years running from. The next morning, I avoided my porch, avoided him, but I couldn't avoid the ache in my chest, the part of me that wanted to run back to that lake and finish what we'd started. Days passed, and I kept my distance. But Noah didn't push. He'd wave from his porch, his smile softer now, like he was giving me space to figure things out. I threw myself into work, sketching logos for clients, trying to drown out the noise in my head. But every night, I'd see his light on, and I'd wonder what he was thinking. Was he hurt? Angry? Or did he understand why I'd pulled away? One evening, Lila showed up at my door, her face serious. You're an idiot. You know that, she said, not mincing words. Noah's one of the good ones, and you're breaking his heart. I tried to play dumb, but she wasn't having it. This town's not as small-minded as you think, Ethan. But you've got to be honest with him, with yourself. Her words stung, but they also lit something inside me. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. Lila's words haunted me for days, like a song stuck on repeat. I wanted to talk to Noah, to explain why I'd frozen at the lake. But fear kept me tethered. Coming out in Chicago had cost me my marriage, my friends, my sense of self. How could I risk that again in a place like Willow Creek? But every time I saw Noah's porch light flicker on, I felt the pull, like gravity, drawing me back to him. One rainy afternoon, I found him fixing a fence in his backyard, his shirt clinging to him in the drizzle. He looked up, and for a moment, we just stared, the rain blurring the space between us. You've been avoiding me, he said, not accusing, just stating a fact. I opened my mouth to lie, but the truth spilled out instead. I'm scared, Noah. I've been running from this my whole life. His eyes softened, and he stepped closer, rain dripping from his hair. You don't have to run anymore, he said. Not here. Not with me. We stood there, soaked and silent, until he invited me inside. His kitchen smelled of coffee and wood smoke, and we sat at his table, the tension thick as the storm outside. I told him everything: me marriage, my denial, the years I'd spent pretending to be someone I wasn't. He listened, his face unreadable, and when I finished, he reached across the table, his hand covering mine. I've been where you are, he said. Hiding. Pretending. It's no way to live. That night, we didn't kiss, didn't cross any lines. We just talked, peeling back layers until I felt raw but lighter. Noah told me about his own pasta high school sweetheart he'd loved in secret, a family who'd never fully understood, a town that accepted him but only to a point. I stay because this is home, he said, but I'm tired of being half a person. His words mirrored my own longing, and for the first time, I let myself imagine a life where I didn't have to hide. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments. We'd meet at the lake, share beers on his porch, or work on my house together, hammering nails like we were building something bigger. Every touch, every laugh, felt like a step toward something real. But Willow Creek wasn't blind. I caught the glances at the diner, the whispers at the bar. Mia and Tom seemed unfazed. But Lila warned me one night. People talk. Ethan. Some won't like it. Be ready. She was right. One Sunday, I found a note taped to my door. Fags don't belong here. The word hit like a blade. Sharp and cold. I tore it up, my hand shaking. But the damage was done. I didn't tell Noah. Didn't want to see the hurt in his eyes. But he noticed something was off. And when he pressed, I showed him the scraps I'd kept. His face hardened. Not with fear, but with a quiet rage. This isn't everyone, he said. But it's enough to make you feel small if you let it. Noah insisted we go to the bar that night. Like nothing had happened. I didn't want to, but he wouldn't let me hide. We walked in together, his hand brushing mine. A silent defiance. Most of the regulars greeted us like always. But a few men in the corner stared, their eyes cold. One of them, a guy named Rick, muttered something under his breath as we passed. Noah tensed but kept walking, his jaw tight. I wanted to leave, to run back to the safety of my house. But Noah's presence anchored me. Later, as we walked home, he stopped under a streetlight, his breath visible in the cool air. I'm not ashamed, Ethan, he said, and I won't let them make you ashamed either. He kissed me then, right there on the sidewalk, where anyone could see. It was fierce, unapologetic, and for a moment, I forgot the note, the stares, the fear. I kissed him back, my heart pounding, and for the first time, I felt free. But freedom comes with a cost. The next morning, my mailbox was smashed. The word scrawled across it in red paint. Noah saw it before I could clean it up, and his face went pale. This is my fault, he said, his voice breaking. I grabbed his arm, pulling him close. No, I said. This is their fault. And we're not backing down. I didn't know where the words came from, but they felt right. Like I was finally claiming something I'd been too scared to own. We reported it to the sheriff, a gruff man named Daniels who promised to look into it. But his eyes told me he wouldn't look too hard. Noah and I spent the day cleaning the paint, our hands brushing as we worked. Every stroke of the brush felt like a rebellion, a way of saying we weren't invisible. That night, we sat on my porch, sharing a beer, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. I knew then that I was falling for him, and it terrified Minute because of the town, but because I'd never felt anything this real. The vandalism didn't stop. A broken window one night, a slashed tire the next. Each act was small but deliberate, like someone was testing how far they could push us. Noah and I didn't talk about it much, but the weight of it hung between us. I started checking my locks twice, jumping at every creak in the house. Noah, though, was a rock angry but steady, like he'd been through this before and knew how to survive it. One evening, Mia invited us to a barbecue at her place, a cozy backyard affair with string lights and the smell of grilled burgers. It was a chance to feel normal, to pretend the town wasn't watching us. Tom played his guitar. Lila told stories about her students, and Noah's laugh lit up the night. I watched him, the way he moved so easily among his friends, and I wanted that ease for myself, for us. But as the night wore on, I noticed Rick and his buddies at the edge of the yard, their eyes on us like hawks. Noah must have sensed it too, because he took my hand under the table, his grip firm. It was a small act, but it felt like a declaration. Rick muttered something to his friends, and one of them laughed, loud enough to cut through the music. Mia shot them a look, but Noah just squeezed my hand tighter. Ignore them, he whispered. but ignoring them felt like ignoring a storm cloud on the horizon. The next day, Noah showed up at my door with a plan. "We're not hiding," he said, his eyes fierce. "There's a town hall meeting tomorrow. We're going." I balked. Facing a room full of people who might hate us felt like walking into a lion's den. But Noah was relentless. "If we don't show up, they win," he said. "We deserve to be here as much as anyone." His conviction was infectious. And I agreed, though my stomach churned at the thought. The town hall was packed, the air thick with tension. We sat near the back, Noah's knee pressed against mine for reassurance. The meeting was about budget cuts, but it felt like a stage for something else. When Rick stood up to speak, his voice dripped with venom. "Some people don't belong here," he said. His eyes locked on us. "They're bringing trouble to our town." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. Noah stood, his voice steady but loud enough to silence the room. "If you mean us, Rick, say it plain. We're not hiding, and we're not leaving." My heart pounded as he spoke, his words a shield and a sword. A few people clapped Mia, Lila, a couple others, but most stayed quiet, their silence louder than any shout. Rick smirked, sitting down, but I could see the anger in his eyes. We'd drawn a line, and there was no going back. After the meeting, we walked home in silence, the weight of what we'd done settling in. Noah stopped at my porch, his face softer now. "I'm proud of you," he said, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known I could feel. That night, we kissed again, slower this time, like we were savoring something fragile. I let myself fall into it, let myself believe we could face whatever came next. But the next morning, everything changed. I woke to sirens and the smell of smoke. Noah's house was on fire, flames licking the windows as neighbors gathered, their faces pale. I ran outside, my heart in my throat, screaming his name. He stumbled out, coughing, his face smeared with soot. "I'm okay," he gasped, grabbing my arm. But his eyes told a different story: fear, anger, loss. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone had set it. The sheriff called it arson, but said there was no evidence of who did it. Noah moved into my place while his house was unlivable, and we clung to each other, trying to make sense of it. Every creak of the floorboards made us jump. Every shadow felt like a threat. But in the quiet moments, when it was just us, I felt something stronger than fear. Love, raw and unyielding. I told him I loved him one night, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He smiled, pulling me close. "I've loved you since that first day," he said. We decided to fight back, not with fists, but with truth. Noah started talking to people, one by one, about who he was, about us. Some turned away, but others listened. Mia, Tom, even the diner owner who'd always been kind. Slowly, we built a small circle of allies, people who saw us as more than a scandal. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep us going. Living with Noah changed everything. My house, once empty and cold, felt alive with him and Ithis books on my shelves, his coffee mug on the counter, his quiet humming as he cooked breakfast. But the fear lingered, a shadow we couldn't shake. The fire had been a warning, and we both knew it. Willow Creek was splitting. Some stood with us, others against us, and the tension was a tightrope we walked every day. One morning, I found another note on my door: leave or burn. My hands shook as I showed it to Noah. He read it, his jaw tight, then crumpled it and threw it in the trash. "We're not running," he said, but his voice cracked, betraying the weight he carried. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. What if staying meant losing him? What if love wasn't enough? We started taking precautions: motion lights, a security camera, A bat by the door. Noah joked about turning my house into a fortress. But his eyes were tired. Older than they'd been a month ago. I hated seeing him like that. Hated that I couldn't protect him. At night, we'd lie in bed, his head on my chest, and talk about leaving somewhere bigger. Somewhere we could be ourselves without looking over our shoulders. But Willow Creek was his home, and I saw the pain in his eyes at the thought of abandoning it. Lila and Mia became our lifeline. They'd stop by with food, news, or just company. Their presence a reminder that we weren't alone. One night, Lila told us about a support group in the next town over. For people like us. You don't have to go, she said, but it might help. Noah was skeptical, but I convinced him. We drove an hour to a community center. Nervous but curious. The room was small, filled with people who looked like us, scared, hopeful, human. Hearing their stories, their struggles, made me feel less like an outsider. Noah held my hand the whole time, his grip tight, like he was anchoring himself. Back in Willow Creek, things escalated. Rick and his crew got bolder, shouting slurs when we passed them at the diner. One night, they followed us home, their truck's headlights glaring in my rearview mirror. Noah told me to keep driving, his voice calm but firm. We lost them in the back roads, but my heart didn't stop racing until we were locked inside. We can't keep doing this, I said, my voice breaking. Noah pulled me into his arms, his breath warm against my hair. We're stronger than they are, he whispered, but I wasn't so sure. The breaking point came at the town's winter festival. Noah and I went, determined to show we weren't scared. The square was lit with twinkling lights, the air thick with the smell of hot cocoa and pine. We stayed close, our hands brushing but not quite holding. Then Rick appeared, drunk and loud, his friends egging him on. You think you can just waltz in here and ruin our town? He shouted, stepping too close. Noah stood his ground, his eyes blazing. We're not ruining anything, he said. We're just living. The crowd went quiet, all eyes on us. I felt exposed, like every secret I'd ever had was laid bare. Then Mia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. They're our neighbors. Rick. Back off. Tom joined her. Then Lila. And soon a small group stood with us, their faces defiant. Rick backed down, muttering. But the message was clear, we had people in our corner. That night, Noah and I sat on my couch, the weight of the day heavy between us. I didn't expect that, I said, my voice soft. He smiled, his hand finding mine. People surprise you, he said, sometimes for the better. We kissed, slow and deep, and for the first time, I believed we could make it not just survive, but thrive. But the threats didn't stop. A brick through my window. More notes. More whispers. We reported everything, but the sheriff's promises felt hollow. Noah and I started planning maybe not to leave, but to fight smarter. We talked about starting a group in Willow Creek, a safe space for anyone who felt like they didn't belong. It was a small dream, but it gave us purpose, something to hold on to when the world felt like it was closing in. Winter settled over Willow Creek, blanketing the town in snow and silence. Noah and I were closer than ever, but the threats were a constant hum in the background, like static we couldn't tune out. We'd started meeting with a few locals, Mia, Lila, and a quiet teenager named Sam who'd come out to his parents and been kicked out. Our group was small, just a few chairs in my living room, but it felt like a rebellion. We called it Safe Haven, a place to talk, to be seen, to heal. Sam's story hit me hard. He was 17, skinny, with eyes that carried too much pain. His parents had called him an abomination, and now he was crashing on Mia's couch. Noah and I took him under our wing. helping him with schoolwork, sneaking him leftovers, watching Noah with him patient, kind, fierce made me love him even more. But it also made me angry. Why did a kid like Sam have to fight so hard just to exist? One night, Safe Haven got a new member, Sarah, a woman in her 40s who'd grown up in Willow Creek and come back after years away. She was trans, her voice soft but steady as she told us about her journey. The group listened, some nodding, others tearing up. I realized then that our fight wasn't just about Noah, and might was about all of us. Anyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. Sarah's courage gave me strength, and I started speaking up more, sharing my own story, my own fears. But outside our little haven, the town was restless. Rick and his crew hadn't let up, and the sheriff's investigations went nowhere. One evening, Noah found a spray-painted slur on my garage door. He scrubbed it off before I could see, but I caught him, his hands red from the cold and the effort. "You don't have to protect me," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. He looked at me, his eyes tired. "I'm not protecting you," he said. "I'm protecting us." That night, we fought out loud, not angry, but raw. I told him I was scared we'd lose everything, that maybe we should leave. He shook his head, his voice breaking. "This is my home, Ethan. I can't let them take it from me." I wanted to argue, to tell him home wasn't worth dying for. But I saw the pain in his eyes. This wasn't just about a place, it was about who he was, who we were together. The next day, Sam showed up at our door, his face pale. He'd overheard Rick at the diner, bragging about teaching us a lesson. My stomach dropped. Noah called Mia and Lila, and we made a plan. We'd confront Rick, not with violence, but with proof. Sam had recorded the conversation on his phone, shaky audio of Rick's voice, clear enough to incriminate him. We took it to the sheriff, demanding action. Daniels listened, his face grim, and promised to bring Rick in for questioning. For a moment, it felt like a victory. But that night, as Noah and I sat on the porch, a truck roared down the street, slowing as it passed our house. I couldn't see the driver, but the message was clear. They weren't done. Noah grabbed my hand, his grip tight. "We're going to be okay," he said, but his voice wavered. I wanted to believe him, but fear was a knot in my chest, tightening with every threat. Safe Haven grew, slowly but steadily. A few more people joined, parents, allies, even a pastor who believed love was love. Each meeting felt like a small act of defiance, a way of saying we weren't invisible. Noah and I started planning an event, a public gathering to show Willow Creek we weren't going anywhere. It was risky, but we were tired of hiding. We wanted to be seen, not as a scandal, but as people, neighbors, friends, lovers. The night before the event, Noah and I lay in bed, the moonlight spilling across the room. "Are we doing the right thing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to me, his eyes soft but fierce. "We're doing the only thing," he said. "Living." He kissed me, and I held him tight, trying to memorize the feel of him, the weight of this moment. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The day of the Safe Haven event dawned cold and clear. The kind of winter morning that stung your lungs but made everything sharp. We'd rented a community center, a small brick building at the edge of town, and spent the morning setting up stringing lights, arranging chairs, laying out coffee and pastries. Noah was everywhere, directing volunteers, checking the sound system, his energy contagious. I watched him, my heart swelling with pride and fear. This was our stand, our line in the sand, and there was no turning back. By noon, people started arriving: Mia, Lila, Sam, Sarah, and others from our group, plus a few curious locals. Some faces were friendly, others wary. But they came. Noah took the microphone, his voice steady as he welcomed everyone. "This is about belonging," he said. "About making a home where everyone is seen." I stood beside him, my hand shaking, but his presence grounded me. I spoke next, my voice rough but honest, telling them about my journey, about finding love and fighting for it. The room was quiet, but I saw nods, tears, even a few smiles. Then Rick showed up. He stood at the back, arms crossed, his friends flanking him. My stomach twisted, but Noah kept talking, his words a lifeline. "We're not asking for permission to exist," he said. "We're here, and we're staying." A few people clapped, then more, until the room was alive with support. Rick's face darkened, and he stormed out, his friends trailing behind. I exhaled, but the tension didn't leave me. We'd won a moment, but the war wasn't over. That night, we celebrated at my house, the group spilling into the living room, laughing and sharing stories. Sam played his guitar, shy at first but gaining confidence. Sarah told us about her dreams of opening a bookstore, and Mia promised to help. It felt like family, fragile but real. Noah and I stole moments in the kitchen, his hand on my waist, his smile saying more than words could. "We did it," he whispered, and I kissed him, letting myself believe we could keep this. But the next morning, everything shattered. I woke to Noah's scream, raw and guttural. I ran outside to find him kneeling by his truck, the windows smashed, the tires slashed, and that word painted across the hood. His face was a mix of rage and despair, and I pulled him into my arms, my own anger burning. "This ends now," I said, my voice steady for the first time. We called the sheriff, but I knew he wouldn't do enough. This was our fight. We rallied the group, and Mia suggested going public, posting Sam's recording online, calling out Rick by name. It was a risk, but we were done playing defense. Lila helped us upload it to a local forum, and within hours, it spread. People commented, some angry, others supportive. The sheriff couldn't ignore it now. Rick was arrested that afternoon, charged with vandalism and harassment. It wasn't justice. Not fully, but it was a start. Noah and I spent the next few days rebuilding, literally and figuratively. We fixed his truck, cleaned the paint, and kept Safe Haven going. The group grew, and so did the support. Letters arrived, some hateful, but many kind, from people who'd been too scared to speak up before. A teacher offered to host a workshop at the school. A council member reached out about a pride event. Willow Creek was changing. Slowly, imperfectly, but it was changing. One night, Noah and I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, the stars bright above us. "I thought I'd lose you," I said, my voice soft. He looked at me, his eyes warm. "You're stuck with me," he said, and we laughed, the sound carrying into the night. I realized then that home wasn't just a place, it was him. Us. The fight we'd chosen. We weren't running anymore. Spring came to Willow Creek, the air soft with new life. Noah's house was repaired, but he stayed with me. Our lives so intertwined, I couldn't imagine it any other way. Safe Haven had become a fixture, meeting weekly, drawing people from neighboring towns. We weren't just surviving any more way, we're building something. A community that held space for everyone. But the scars remained. In the wary glances we still got. In the quiet moments when Noah's hand tightened in mine, like he was bracing for the next blow. Rick's trial was quick. The evidence undeniable. He was fined and sentenced to community service. A slap on the wrist that left a bitter taste. But the town was watching now, and his friends kept their distance. We'd expose them, not just to the law, but to the court of opinion. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to breathe a little easier. Noah and I started planning a pride event. Small but bold. Set for the summer. We worked with Lila, Mia, and Sam, who'd become like a little brother to us. He was back with his parents, who were trying to understand. Thanks to Mia's relentless advocacy, the event took shape: booths, music, a march through the square. We expected pushback, and we got it. Flyers torn down, angry letters, a petition to cancel it. But we also got support: businesses donating, families signing up, even the pastor speaking out in our favor. The night before the event, Noah and I sat on the lake's edge, the same spot where he'd kissed me months ago. "Are you scared?" I asked, my voice barely above the water's lapping. He nodded, his eyes on the stars. "Terrified. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." I leaned into him, my heart full. We'd fought for this, bled for it, and now we were here, together, unbroken. The Pride event was chaos and beauty. The square was alive with color rainbow flags, laughter, music. Sam led a youth group, his smile brighter than I'd ever seen. Sarah ran a booth selling books, her face glowing with purpose. Mia and Lila marched with us, their signs high: "Love is love. Willow Creek welcomes all." Some protesters showed up, shouting from the sidelines, but they were drowned out by the crowd. Our crowd, bigger than we'd dreamed. Noah and I walked hand in hand, our steps steady. People stared, some with warmth, others with judgment. But we didn't care. This was our home, our fight, our love. When Noah took the stage to speak, his voice carried over the noise. "We're here because love doesn't hide," he said. "It builds. It heals. It stays." The crowd cheered, and I felt tears in my eyes. Not from fear, but from pride. That night, we collapsed into bed, exhausted but alive. Noah traced circles on my back, his breath warm against my skin. "We did it," he whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. "We're doing it," I said. "Every day?" Because that was the truth. Love wasn't a moment. It was a choice, one we'd make again and again. Willow Creek wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, still shadows. But we'd carved out a space, a home, not just for us, but for anyone who needed it. Noah's smile, the one that had welcomed me that first day, was still there. But now it held a promise we'd both earned. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were partners, fighters, lovers, two men who'd crossed a line and found something worth keeping. As the stars lit up the sky, I looked at Noah, his face soft in the moonlight, and I knew this was the ending that mattered: not a fairy tale, but a life, messy and real, built on love that refused to break. We'd faced the fire, the hate, the fear, and we were still here. That was our victory, our meaning, our home.